It's the Underwear Olympics, and we've got a banger of a show tonight. Probing's back. We got special guest Dave Kluge right now. Producer, hit that button. Welcome to another edition of the Dynasty Pulse right here on the Fantasy Sports Advice Network and talking West Tennessee, talking sports, talking 101.5 FM, talking West Tennessee. bigz is here, Grindberg's here, Coach is here, Chev's here, Schultzy's here. We got a great special guest for you tonight. We are bricked up in all of the right places. There's stiff competition out there, but we're stiffer. How you boys doing?
Doing awesome, man. We can't wait to get our guest up here. So, Schultzy, let's bring him on, man.
Yo! Dave, man, will you, come on, open up the door, will you? I got the stuff with me. I think the cops on G-A-V-E, will you?
Dave's not here!
Dave is here, man.
First time I've ever gotten introduced via Cheech and Chong, so thank you for that. That's a bucket lister for me.
All right, we got a great show. We're talking combine. We're talking running backs. Dave Kluge just wrote up all of the running backs for the football guys. We have all been big fans of the football guys. We've had Dave Kluge on every year for the past few years. This will be year number 3. So we are very familiar with him, and it's going to be a great show. Take it away, Grindberg.
Dave, man, tell us everything you got going on right now. I know you're really busy here at the football guys. You guys just, dropped a banger of a prospect guide that is free for everybody. Obviously, you've been busy, so tell everybody a little bit more about it.
Yeah, that's been the big thing that we're working on right now. The season, before it even ends, we kind of started dipping our toes into the prospects waters a little bit. We had version 1 come out the day after the Super Bowl. We had 157 prospects in there. We missed a couple that ended up making the combine that we didn't expect, but we've got those guys added as well. Version 2 will be coming out after this weekend. We're planning for a Tuesday or Wednesday release based on how quickly we can get everything turned around after the combine. And then, of course, version 3 after the NFL draft. But footballguys.com/rookie guide. It's 100% free, which is really cool because there aren't many people doing free prospect guides this time of year.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I know that the 3 guys that put all that work into the guide have been grinding tape, and it's really incredible. I think you guys did over 150 prospects, which is a lot of film to watch. And I know you guys put your shows on hold and everything like that. So all of us that have been, intaking your content, appreciate the guide, and let's get this show going.
Monday, by the way, we're firing up the Football Guys Fantasy Show Monday. Joey Wright will be on with me, and then we'll have Bob Harris on later in the week, Jeff Bell on later in the week as well. So we'll be a nonstop rotation of Football Guys guests coming through there.
Sweet, man. Looking forward to tuning in. Well, it's time to probe our expert on this running back class. And Dave, you put the work in, you dove into the film, 50 prospects deep. So I'm sure you got some sleepers. We're obviously going to be talking about the top end talent here, but we got some sleepers here too. So talk about some testing. We're going to talk about what you're looking for, this week, but we're going to talk about the running backs in general here. And we're going to start probing you, Dave. So are you ready for it?
I'm ready for my probing.
All right, Schultzy, run it up, buddy. All right, Schultzy, you're up with the first question, man.
Dave, welcome back. As always, honor to have you. We greatly look forward to this, man. We appreciate it. Scouting running backs here. Give me maybe your favorite physical trait, like when you're watching a guy on film, and then maybe your favorite metric that will pop out on a guy when you're looking at some spreadsheets. Like for me, physical trait, I love contact balance. Guys just keep having an extra opportunity to gain more yards, gain more points. Looking at spreadsheets, I've always been a missed tackle force guy. That was one of the big reasons I was pretty high on Bucky Irving a couple of years ago. So contact balance for me, missed tackles force. What say you?
Yeah, I think the ability to generate yards after contact. So very similar to what you said with contact balance, because there's multiple ways to do that. You know, you see it in college all the time. These guys just like untouched to the house. That just doesn't happen in the NFL. Every yard is earned. So I want to see guys who, you know, I think when you hear like through contact, so many people are just expecting like a bruising running back who's going to drop a guy, and like, yeah, that's always fun. But what I like are the guys who are able to just bend a little bit to mitigate that contact, and they're not getting hit as hard as you'd expect to, that they're able to continue downfield. I mean, like I said, everything is earned in the NFL. So that's really what I'm looking for. Like, can you take a hit and still keep moving and getting downfield? Are you able to accelerate through contact when there isn't much of a hole there, so you can still get that extra half yard or a yard, because that does tend to just add up over the time. I like missed tackles forced a lot. I will say, I think if there's one position that you can just completely throw analytics out the window with, it's running backs. There's no real sticky metric there. Missed tackles forced is a good one. Yards after contact per attempt is another good one. But since it's combine season, I want to talk about the drills that actually matter at the combine, because we get so enamored with the 40-yard dash. It doesn't matter at all. Like, it doesn't matter what a guy runs straight in a line for 40 yards, because he's probably going to get that opportunity once or twice in his entire NFL career. So I'm looking at the 10-yard split in the 40-yard dash. How quick are they hitting that first 10 yards? The 3-cone, the shuttle, because that's what a running back has to do. Like, are you able to move quickly in the short areas of the field? So I don't care about the 40-yard dash. For me, it's that 10-yard split, the 3-cone, and the shuttle that I care most about this weekend.
Oh,
Awesome.
man.
That's fair. Broad jump too.
Broad jump and vertical, yeah. I mean, those are both that'll help with the explosiveness for sure. I don't put quite as much weight in there, but
No.
for me, it's that 10-yard shuttle and 3-cone. It has led me astray. You know, my boy Taj Brooks did really well in all three of those last year and hasn't done much in the NFL so far, but still a lot of career left.
So far, he's still
So far.
The metrics go out 3 seasons, first 3 seasons. So he's still our boy.
He is, yes.
All right, Chev, you've been waiting. I think you've been asking me since the offseason started. When's Dave coming on the show? When's David coming on the show? So Dave is finally on the show for you to talk to him again. So what do you got for him, buddy?
Dave, how are you now? Not so bad. Good, and you? All right. So
Allegedly.
allegedly. All right. This is just a guy draft at the running back position after Mr. Jeremiah Love, not that joker above me on the screen there, but Jeremiah Love. All right. So looking at your rankings, you're very bullish on the one they call Fat Man, Kaytron Allen. Okay. What are the most you just hit on some of the traits, but what's the most transferable trait that you see for him that gets you the most excited? And can you talk through what a ceiling outcome looks like for him at the combine this week? Like, we know he's not going to be an underwear Olympics veteran, just all timer like Sonny Styles. But what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, he's got some big questions to answer this weekend. And, you know, one of the tough things about being so early in this process is that, like, you know, when I first started watching Kaytron Allen, I loved him. And then the more I watched, there were some things that stuck out to me. Of course, we know that, like, he doesn't have the best long speed, and that's what I'd like to see. Right after I'm just saying the 40 doesn't matter. I think for a guy like Kaytron Allen, when there's a huge question mark about his speed, he does have to answer that question, because what we saw is him listed at 233 pounds at Penn State. And you say, you know, I can live with a guy who's a little bit slower if he's 233. Then he shows up to mobile and he weighs 220 pounds, much different than his listed weight. So, you know, you can do big and slow. You can't do small and slow. So he's going to have to answer some questions this weekend. That being said, what I like about him, it gets a little bit narrative-y here, right? But Penn State last year, everything went wrong for him. Like, Drew Aller early in the season immediately gets hurt. Defenses completely changed how they were playing up against Penn State. They started loading the box. They were blitzing way heavier. And what we saw from Kaytron Allen is that he had his most productive season. He had over 1,300 scrimmage yards, and he had his most efficient season. He had over 6 yards per touch. So to me, that's much more indicative of what he's going to be seeing in the NFL, are these loaded boxes, you know, trying to stop the run. When things were going well, they were able to just kick the ball out to Nick Singleton. He could get out wide. He can go, you know, untouched for a huge touchdown. Last year, we saw him have to reel back Nick Singleton's workload, lean a little bit heavier on Kaytron Allen. So that's what gets me especially excited when I see a guy who's 220 plus pounds, has that wiggle in the short areas of the field, and we've seen him consistently through 4 years at Penn State handle a big workload and avoid injury. I think when I look at Kaytron Allen, there obviously isn't the ceiling. He's not going to be a Jadarian Price, Nick Singleton type of athlete, but I think the floor here is really safe, that he can handle a big workload. You can give him 250 touches per year. He's going to mitigate losses. He's not going to be a guy who's going to hurt an offense overall. So I think that's the ceiling outcome for me here, is that he can land in a position where he gets drafted in round 2 or round 3 if he tests well this weekend, and immediately walks into a workload where he's seeing an RB1 load.
Dave, question on that. A lot of David Montgomery comps, and it was cool to see in the last month how high you've been put, because I think you've put him up as RB2, Kaytron Allen. I've seen some bullishness on your end, and I really like that, because this is a class to me where it's like, hey, how excited are people about the Tyler Algiers? How excited are they about the David Montgomerys in that sense? Because you're getting a lot of those archetypes, and sometimes people get a little bit bored. It's a little bit too vanilla, but we've seen what it reaps in some place like Detroit. What would be some team fits that you would like? And ironically, with David Montgomery possibly being out of town, do you think that's a sneaky spot, the Detroit Lions, for Kaytron Allen to pair with a Jahmyr Gibbs?
I think that's exactly what they're looking for, is somebody that they can pair alongside him, because we've seen that historically. And as much as, I'd love for my Chicago Bears, it just doesn't make sense stylistically. Like, they've already got Kyle Monangai who can kind of do the Kaytron Allen stuff. They need to pair him up with Breece Hall. If he doesn't get franchise tag, that would be pretty sweet. But that being said, that was the other one that immediately came to my mind, is like having a partner with Breece Hall. But I think they've already got that role filled with Braylon Allen. So it's so hard to speculate about potential landing spots right now, because we have free agency, and this isn't a top heavy free agency class, but it is a deep free agency class. Like, you talk about David Montgomery and Tyler Algier, those aren't even the guys that are like the marquee names in this class. Those are some of the deeper guys in there. Of course, we think Kenneth Walker might end up back in Seattle. Breece Hall might end up in the Jets, but Kaytron Allen, what I'm looking for ideally would be a team that has a good offense, so he's afforded scoring opportunities. Put him in Kansas City, put him in Tampa Bay, something like that. But of course, a lot of those teams already have running backs. So like Cincinnati, I love Taj Brooks last year, but knowing that he landed in Cincinnati, there's no chance that he's going to take a role from Chase Brown. So the ideal team fit would be anywhere that gives him a path to playing time, because he's not the type of player that if you're just giving him 80 touches a year, he doesn't have the size to break off the big plays. He doesn't have the pass catching upside. So once we get through free agency, whatever team has a pressing need for running back, that's where I'm hoping Allen lands eventually.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. Well, I'm going to get into my question for you here, Dave, and it's about a guy that a couple of us in this room are pretty high on, and we noticed that you're pretty steaming him up as well. And I think your wife put him as your RB2 in this class, if I'm not mistaken, Dave. Yep. Yeah, we had a Twitter DM this morning, and it was funny. It was auto-corrected to his wife, but it was like he put him in as his RB2. So I was like, oh, perfect. She's a smart lady to put Mike Washington at your RB2 of this class. But I can totally see why he's currently my RB3. And, I think it's a new development for you to put him there. Am I correct, Dave?
Yeah, about a week and a half ago, I moved him.
Okay, so now he's there. He's up in there in your rookie guide, and there's some things that I'm going to be looking for him at the combine, especially. What are you going to be looking for him to improve or keep his draft stock? I mean, you can't get him any higher at this stage. Jeremiah Love, I don't think he's going to be attainable, but I think with draft capital upside, a good testing here at the combine, what are you looking for him to solidify that RB2 spot, or, what could be, detrimental for his testing to bring him down to other levels for you?
If I'm being honest, I don't think there's much he can do to hurt his stock this weekend, because I think he already answered a lot of the questions that we had in mobile. Like, he logged the second fastest time of any running back there. He weighed in at 233 pounds. So any elite testing this weekend is just a cherry on top, but I'm not going to overreact to bad testing, because we already saw him for an entire weekend in mobile, looking like one of the most athletic players out there, catching the ball, running routes, doing everything that we expected here. I know one of the knocks is about fumbles. He fumbled a lot. Yeah, and that's something that I just don't want to hold against him too much. I think that fumbles are more of a coaching issue than anything else. And if you look at Taylon Green, it's 17 fumbles over the last 2 years. So, like, I don't know what they're teaching about ball security there in Arkansas, but it's clearly not going well. And, like, I can think of a lot of guys who came into the league with fumbling issues that figured it out later in their career. Tiki Barber was fumbling the ball like 10 times per year until Tom Coughlin taught him how to carry the ball. And Adrian Peterson fumbled early in his career. Chris Johnson fumbled early in his career. So I'm not crazy about the fumbles, but that's something that we've seen can get coached out of a player pretty well. This is a guy with elite size, elite speed. I don't know why he isn't higher up in a lot of consensus rankings, because he checks every single box that we want to see in fantasy. Such an underrated pass catcher as well. He's a guy that the more I watch, the more I like.
Woo pig.
Shoot, yeah. Matt Jones went to Arkansas and he fumbled the bag too.
Oh, jeez. All right. Chev, what do you have to say? I know you got a little bit of a segment later on talking about Mike Washington, but maybe you look pretty concerned about when, Dave mentioned why he isn't at consensus. Do you have a reason behind that?
Okay, first of all, it's birthday gate. So some slappy just made up a date that he was born instead of just using math and being like, oh, you played your junior year in 2019, and you're gonna play your senior year of high school football in 2020, and they're like, oh man, he's got to be 25 years old. So birthday gate, which was solved by Patricia Washington 6175 in the comments of the player profiler video. It's all, I put it on my Twitter X. So that's the one thing. The other thing is the fumbles, but it does show somewhat of a self-awareness, right? You know that's a big knock on your profile. He only fumbled once this past year, so he knows it. Like, you know that the quickest way off of an NFL roster as a running back is to put the church's money on the ground. So I think that he's actively working on that. He's fixing it. And as you alluded to, the 3-down skill set, it just feels like we're overthinking this. And a lot of it is just the spreadsheet zaddies being like, well, he's 25 years old and he didn't break out until his 5th year. He can't be good in the NFL. So yes, I will give the floor back to everybody else. I get it out there because it's a made up narrative. I was arguing with a dude about it on Reddit. Like, he was like, well, how do you, what if it's true? It's like, well, what if it's not true? What are you basing it?
Bingo.
Yeah. Dave said it great.
So much like Devy, which, I think Devy's great. It helps like people get acclimated to players early, but they hold on to these recruit rankings so much that you see a lot of these guys that come in. Mike Washington was a 2-star recruit. Like, he wasn't getting the hype that Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price and Nick Singleton and these other guys who were all 5-star recruits coming out of that class were. So I think that's the other thing is people have said like, no, like I've been holding on to my Nick Singleton shares so tightly for the last 3 years that like Mike Washington can't possibly be better than him. And I think that bleeds into it a little bit as well.
There's a funny thing that goes along with human development, and it's that individuals develop differently. So you can have one kid who's 17 years old that's physically dominant, and some other kid that doesn't reach that physical dominance till they're 22 years old. It just like that's the way it happens. So I'm looking at some 2-star recruits that are perfectly fine as seniors in college. I'm looking at some 4-star recruits that it's like, what happened? And so, yeah, grain of salt.
I like that too. When a player comes in kind of with a chip on his shoulder, like we see this all the time. These 5-star recruits just kind of flame out. Where like Jamari Taylor, when I was kind of digging into him, like I loved his story so much. 0-star recruit, goes to JUCO, finds a role on special teams, turns into a lead back, transfers to the SEC. Like everything about it, like it's just like he showed that he was able to overcome adversity throughout his college career. And when I see a guy like Mike Washington, same thing. He wasn't drafted to be Arkansas's lead running back. He earned that role. And to me, that just shows like perseverance that gets me excited.
Hey, and another thing on that, you're talking about a player from high school who went in the Syracuse area in New York. That's very much a football desert as far as recruitment. So when you're able to matriculate all the way up to a place like Arkansas,
no
better competition. Right. That is just the path. That's something like now he's matriculating up our ranks as a rookie. So you love to see.
And you can't put any doubt on it. Like the combine, yeah, he might whiff a drill or two, but that 21 mile per hour GPS burst. You guys, any of you guys know what that translates into kilometers? Probably not. That's like 50 kilometers per hour, guys. That's pretty swift. That's
God, when you put it that way. Whew.
How many barbecues is that?
Whoa. All right. Okay. All right. We're doing the podcast from Quebec now. Okay. Cool, bro. Kilometers. Okay. All right.
Manitoba
buddy.
degens.
Yeah. Rein it in.
Give your ball. Oh, no.
All right. Let's move on. All right, Coach.
Down,
you got a question for our guest here.
All right, Dave, thank you for being on the show. Love having you. Very sharp, man. And comparing NFL free agents at the running back position, how would you rank the running backs after Jeremiah Love? We're talking RB2 through RB6, 7. You're talking Jonah Coleman, Jadarian Price, Mike Washington, Kaytron Allen, of course, Emmett Johnson, maybe Damon Claiborne. We can kind of pack it there, and maybe there's some other players that you might like. But then juxtapose it with your Breece Halls, your Kenneth Walkers, Etienne. I've just got the spot track free agents up here. Rashad White, Rico Dowdle. You list all those players. How is it formulating between RB2? Because what I'm trying to find out, and maybe you could just shed more light on, is for RB2, how much is the drop off to the narrative that this is a bad running back class or a bad overall class? When we zoom in on the running back class, how much is it worse? And how much is it packed where you put those free agents above to where we need to kind of cool our jets, even though these are high rookie draft players, RB2 through, let's say, 10?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I'm glad you asked it. I just updated my running back rankings with all of the rookies folded in there, so I can give you exact answers on all these. I think Jeremiah Love, obviously, like a tier above all of these guys that we've talked about, all the incoming rookies, all of the free agents. And don't get me wrong, I like Breece Hall and I like Ken Walker, but you're getting almost 5 years younger with Jeremiah Love and doesn't have the wear and tear on his body. So I've got Jeremiah Love right now is my RB4 behind just Gibbs, Bijan, and Ginty. I do prefer Breece Hall and Ken Walker above all of the rest of the running backs. And, they're still youngish, 24 years old and 25 years old. We've still got a couple of years of elite production out of them. Not crazy about Breece Hall going back to the Jets most likely, but I still think he'll be okay. And then I just kind of clustered everybody else right in a similar tier. So I got Mike Washington, Kaytron Allen, Jadarian Price, Nick Singleton, Jonah Coleman, all bunched in there. And I've got those ahead of all of the other free agents. Some other kind of surprising names that I have them ahead of. I've got them ahead of RJ Harvey. I've got them ahead of Travis Etienne, DeAndre Swift. Now, these are all names that we know, but we also know that a lot of these guys, unless they're in a perfect situation, are just going to kind of be like volume-based back-end RB2s. I don't see any of those guys as like significant game changers, and I don't think all of these running backs will be either. But if I'm doing drafts right now where I know that I can get a late first-round pick that I can use on one of those running backs, I would prefer that over a lot of the names that I listed. RJ Harvey, I'm a huge fan of RJ Harvey, but he's going to be 26 this year. Like, this guy, he should be looking at his second contract, not his second year in the NFL. So that age concerns me a little bit. Working a little bit further down to some of the other available free agents. Yeah, I mean, I've got Algier quite a bit behind those guys, and I like him, but the limited pass catching upside concerns me a little bit. So for me, it's Love. Then I've got Breece Hall. Then I've got Kenneth Walker, and then I've got that whole cluster of running backs there ahead of Rashad White, Tyler Algier, and all the rest of the free agents.
Even Mostert?
Even Mostert, yeah. Let's see how deep I went on my rankings, and if Raheem Mostert, my RB 162.
Well, what's your vibe on Travis Etienne then? Because he's a guy that I think is going to. Well, I'm sorry, Schultzy. Did I interrupt you there?
I have a follow up, and it involves him, but keep going.
Okay, yeah, but he's a sought after free agent. He's being touted to maybe go to the Chiefs potentially. That's been the rumor here, and even if I think his most optimal situation is actually staying with the Jaguars, but. Do you think they let him walk? Like, where does he rank in this for you here?
He is my Dynasty RB 28 right now, and this is probably just because I'm a little bit of an ageist. So I have Blake Corum, RJ Harvey, Javonte Williams, then all the rookies that I discussed ahead of him, heading into his age 28 season. I know like the big thing with Travis Etienne is so many people tag that first round draft capital to Travis Etienne. We got to remember that was an Urban Meyer draft pick. Like, that doesn't really count. He only took Travis Etienne because Kadarius Toney was off the board. Like, that was just a weird year in Jacksonville. So I think that first round draft capital comes with a bit of an asterisk. I think he's a good player, but I think that selling him right now makes sense coming off of the best year that he has had in his career. Of course, if he goes to Kansas City, then I look like an idiot. If he goes to Chicago, I look like an idiot. But, I think you were right. I think staying in Jacksonville would probably be the best case scenario for him. I just, getting up there in age a little bit, just the one elite season has me a little bit cautious about his outlook for the next couple of seasons.
Schultzy?
So, not just Etienne here, but assuming the Kansas City spot gets filled by one of these higher echelon rookies or like a solid free agent, what's the Kansas City bump going to do to a guy in your rankings?
It depends. Like if Jeremiah Love signs with Kansas City, it's going to be hard to keep him behind Ashton Jinsey. I mean, that's what we all want to see, and we're all hoping to see. Really, the Chiefs haven't been a team that they haven't spent meaningful draft capital on a running back since Kareem Hunt. They're trying to piece together Deneric. I don't even remember the guy's name. Deneric Prince, I think.
Prince,
yep. Yeah. Darrell Williams and Damian Williams. Like they've just been doing this patchwork receiver room for the last decade now. It feels like I'd like to see them pay up a little bit, but I think if one of these guys does end up going round 2 or round 3 to Kansas City, I don't see how you can keep any of these guys, whether it's Emmett Johnson or Kaytron Allen. Like if any of these guys get round 2, round 3 draft capital to Kansas City, we're not supposed to adjust that much, but I'd be lying if I said I'd be able to keep any of those guys out of my top 18.
Wow. You just said a really exciting name to me there. Kansas City. Can't wait.
You're not stealing my thunder about Emmett Johnson, bro.
Thunder rolls. Okay, we got one more question for you here before we get into our spotlights. And Biggs, you got a banger here.
I actually have a 2-part question. So in 2025, there were 7 rookie running backs that finished in the top 36. If you add Cam Scatterbo before his injury, that makes 8. You had Ashton Jeanty, Travion Henderson, Amarian Hampton. They were pretty much consensus, kind of locked in at their price. RJ Harvey gained steam after the draft, after his landing spot. And then guys like Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Kyle Monangai, Woody Marks, they weren't on many radars outside of, like the deep analyst space. Who are some of the lesser known RBs that you can think of that could possibly, they have the skill set, or with the right landing spot, they could fall into the top 36 this year? And then last week we talked about Kalen Black and Jaden Ott. They were combine snubs. Much to our surprise and chagrin, we all love both of those guys, and we're higher on them than consensus. Who are a few other under the radar RBs that you're targeting? So who do you think has the possibility to jump into the top 36 in this rookie class outside of the couple that are pretty much already there? And who are some of the under the radar guys that you're targeting?
Well, first, I want to say that I think, like, if we're chasing what we got last year, you're just going to be disappointed. That running back class was so good. And I think that, I talk about draft capital coming with an asterisk. I feel like all of the running backs from last year, you can do that because it seemed like every team was kind of like playing chicken. Nobody wanted to be the first to draft running backs because you kept knowing that there were going to be good running backs later. And that's why Bashal Tootin, Cam Scatterbo, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Kyle Monangai, Woody Marks, all these talented running backs fell to day 3. I think we're going to see something similar this year, but with the receivers. Like, this is such a deep receiver class that I think a lot of people are going to be waiting until day 3 to take the receivers that they want. So I think this could actually end up inflating some of the running backs and pushing them up the board a little bit. But I also don't think we're going to get 7 or 8 guys that are giving us, meaningful fantasy production. But if I had to bet, I got a few guys that are going a little bit later that I like. Le'Veon Moss is the first one. Just such a good player, so fast, just a track star in high school. It's just been nonstop injuries throughout his college career, so we haven't really seen a full healthy season from him. But when I see a guy with that sort of contact balance, that sort of speed, like the ceiling for him, I see a lot of Dalvin Cook in his game. So when I'm taking darts, like throwing these late round darts on players, I'm often looking for guys that have injury concerns because that causes them to fall in the draft, and then they could easily overcome that if they just get healthy. So another guy that fits that bill for me is Desmond Reed, and I think the major fear here is that he's tiny. Like, he is a small guy. I don't have his weight on the top of my head, but I want to say he's like 170 something. Like, he's Tariq Cohen's size, basically. 175 pounds. But this is a guy 2 years ago at over 1,300 all-purpose yards. He's just a dynamic player, and then was injured last year and hardly did anything. So another guy that could potentially be fun if he gets an opportunity and stays healthy. And then the one I could throw two other names. Robert Henry, really fun player. It's going to, be challenging to make the leap from the competition level he was playing at to the NFL, but 3 straight games with 75+ yard touchdowns. I mean, just a big play waiting to happen. And then the other guy is Adam Randall out of Clemson. And this is solely because he's just got a really fun skill set. Was recruited as a wide receiver, didn't do much of anything as a wide receiver, was kind of pushed into emergency duty at running back, and then became their full-time running back. So still a very raw player, but like Mike Washington, has the size and speed, 233 pounds, fastest speed and mobile, also has the pass catching upside, obviously, from his background as a wide receiver. So, my comp for him immediately, that was one of those comps, 30 seconds of watching his film, and I'm like, oh, that's Cordero Patterson out there. That's cool.
Yeah.
And then our Mike Kashuba was in Mobile, was talking with Adam Randall and said, are there any players that you kind of style your game after? And he said Cordero Patterson. So that was kind of cool to see that, he feels the same way about himself that I felt watching him. So Adam Randall, I don't know how the NFL is going to view him. He might be reliant on gimmicky touches early in his career, but hopefully he could have that breakout, not like Cordero Patterson and do something before his 9th year in the league.
Well, you mentioned injury guys who are coming back off of injuries, and I was going to follow that up, leading to Adam Randall with maybe positional transitions. Like if Tyrone Tracy and Derrick Henry had a baby.
Hey, if Cordero Patterson took till year 9, that means we are so close to the Laviska Shenault breakout.
We are very close to that. It's great. bigz actually mentioned Adam Randall on our redraft show earlier because we were doing the combine primer, and he was a guy that he was circling because of exactly what you mentioned there. The guy with the size and the pass catching chops. You don't really see that very often, and it's made me really intrigued about him. So 2 guys sharp. Talking about Adam Randall, he's going to be on my radar now. Absolutely.
And let's not forget, Schultzy brought up Robert Henry Jr.
Yeah, exactly. It's
so
great.
You just touched on the 2 guys that we brought up on the fantasy forecast earlier today.
Love that.
Well, we are going to talk about our spotlight, some plant flagging guys that we have pre-combine, pre-draft, guys that we are ready to go. And we're going to spotlight
You're not
some
from
guys.
Australia, mate.
No, I'm not, but I'm from Canada, so I let things slide here. I mean, I'm pretty distraught after last weekend, so losing that gold medal game was
2
really
silvers,
tough.
2 losing 2 gold medal games. Don't forget the women.
Yeah, no, I don't forget. I don't forget. And
It's pretty cold up there, isn't it?
It is. It's a lot colder now. All right, so we're gonna spotlight some guys. We're gonna flag plant some guys. I know that Dave got to the show sheet last, so we probably pegged off a lot of these guys. We've already talked about it. So
I didn't peg any guys.
Pegging and probing.
We brag, yeah.
Probe, peg, and all of the above. We're hot. All right, okay. So Dave, talk about a guy that we talked a little bit about Kaytron Allen, but you had him steamed up earlier. You slid him down a bit now. Talk about a little bit more about him and why you think he could be a guy that is on the fantasy radar for years to come here.
Yeah, I already led into the narrative-y part a little bit about him. Just having, you can see right here on the 1,300 rushing yards, 6.2 yards per attempt. He had his most productive and efficient year last year when it really hit the fan in Penn State. So that's what gets me excited. But this is a guy that I think just is better suited. Like NFL teams, I think, are going to like him a lot more than fantasy players are going to like him because we do get so enamored. The guys that I was just talking about, Adam Randall and Desmond Reed, these guys that are like big plays, pass catching. And I don't think Kaytron Allen has that, but to me, the narrative around Kaytron Allen feels very similar to what we were hearing about Nick Chubb, that like the big play upside wasn't there, that the pass catching wasn't there, but he's just such a good runner, especially in the tight areas of the field. Like when he gets between the tackles, he's got just enough wiggle to shake loose. I talked about being able to generate yards after contact, and that doesn't just come from trucking defenders. It's just that little innate ability to know when to sidestep a defender, when to use a stiff arm, just ways to get through contact to continue earning those yards. And that's just something that I consistently see from Kaytron Allen. He doesn't leave any yards on the field unless those yards are directly in front of him and he's getting chased down by a safety.
That's all right.
I just did the Eminem the B rabbit thing. See, like I already talked about his speed, so you can't even use it against me now.
No, I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to say it. I mean, we've talked about this. We've talked about this in the DMs quite a bit. I know how you feel about him. I know how I felt about him prior. I was hoping that he would go to the NFL after last year, but he came back and put up an even more impressive season. I think one of the most unique things about him is he just knows how to make people take bad angles. So he's not fast, but he's always making, like, the way that he makes people miss is just like, you think you have him dead to rights, and then you hit like a shoulder and he falls forward for an extra 2 or 3 yards. Like you said, he gets every single yard that he's there. That's there. I feel like this is the premium archetype of a guy like Brian Robinson. So that's why it works in the NFL. Like, Brian Robinson's a good NFL running back. He's just not going to be really good for fantasy unless he gets 340 touches. So we could be in that era with Kaytron Allen, but I think he's a little bit better than what we're giving it credit for at Penn State, just because that was a dumpster fire. So I'm excited to see the testing numbers. I want to see the agility stuff. I feel like the agility stuff's going to be better than what people expect. Obviously, he's going to crush the drills. It's just the 40 that people are going to get hung up on, but they got hung up on that. They got hung up on that with Cam Scatterbo last year, and we see how that worked out. So.
And oh my God, I'm kicking myself for that. Like, Cam Scatterbo, when I was watching him last year, I'm like, this is one of the best, like, most fun running backs I've ever seen in my life. And then just poor athletic testing, and I, like an idiot, just like adjusted. I'm like, oh, he can't run. And like I preach all the time, like, don't get hung up on 40 times, and I did it with Cam Scatterbo. So yeah, I'm trying. I think I learned from that last year, and that's why I'm trying not to. Like, I might not even watch the 40-yard dash this year if I'm being honest. But you talk about like just making the right angles and doing those little things, and like this is going to sound like such a disrespectful comp, but Khalil Herbert was a guy that, like, I loved coming into the league because that's what he did. Like, he wasn't the biggest or the fastest guy. He just had this innate ability to weave through traffic and always know like where that next foot was supposed to go. Kaytron Allen, I see a lot of that in his game, except he's 15 pounds heavier and has better athleticism than Khalil Herbert, but he just has that innate, natural, instinctual running that it's kind of hard to put a finger on, but you know when you see it.
I'm guilty of doing that last year, 2 years ago with Bucky Irving with his 40 time. I completely, I was really high on him headed into the combine, and I let my priors not go through here, and I didn't get enough Bucky in his rookie season, and it would have been great because I was pretty high on him headed into the process because I liked what I saw. But, the Oregon running backs, all that history, and then you couple that with the slow 40 time, I was like, hey, I have to downgrade him a bit, and that's what happened. Jeez.
I've been doing this for a long time now. Some of the advice I'd have to like new content creators out there, people who are making year-round content, is like a month before the season kicks off, go back and read everything that you were writing or rewatch some shows that you were doing in February and March, because a lot of times, like, we have good takes now. And then what happens is just like throughout the slog of the offseason, people challenge your takes. Everybody just kind of like conforms to the consensus. So go back and just like rewatch this show or rewatch another show that you did this time of year, or read an article that you wrote and try to like reframe before the season kicks off back to where your head is now, because really you're going to move off of a lot of your good opinions right now because people are going to convince you that they're wrong opinions. And sometimes you just got to stick with your gut.
Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. Chev, you're sticking to your gut. And obviously I got to the show sheet before you could talk about our guy together, but I'll let you comment on after I talk a little bit, but talk about your other guy here, Mike Washington, man.
You skipped Schultzy. Where did Schultzy? Yeah.
Well, I didn't mean to.
Yeah. Well, let's see which the next slide. It was mine. All right. I'll take it.
All right.
We got Robert Henry Jr. Slide. All right, we got it. Running back from UTSA. A little bit of an older dude, so that's like one of my bigger concerns here. You don't like to see that, but however, I think we got a sleeper building here that I'm gonna go after some shares, and it's a player I'm really starting to steam up and really like. The thing that popped for me was some numbers here. The yards after contact per attempt, like the only dude better in this class, Jeremiah Love. Looking at the missed tackles forced per attempt, he's like the second tier right behind, all the big names we're going to talk about here. And those numbers, they show on film. Like he's constantly turning these 0 to negative 3 yard runs into 1 to 3 4 yard runs. So it doesn't look pretty on a box score, but the blocking a lot of time wasn't great. and he's turning nothing into something. So there's just extra yards he's gaining all the time, and it's showing up on the film. I love it. He's super explosive, decisive. He's got great instincts. The long speed's fine. I've seen him. He breaks away. He can score from anywhere on the field, so I don't have concerns there. You saw 58 career receptions, so I think we can see some of that translate here to the next level. Big fan here, man. I love that he went against a playoff defense against Texas A&M this year and dominated them. 16 carries, 177 yards, 2 touchdowns. One of them was a home run that he cut a guy in the backfield, broke to the second level, got another dude one-on-one, cut him, and just broke free. I am falling in love with this guy. I think he's going to be a later pick. I mean, there's a huge range of outcomes here, right? There's the entire possibility. This is a complete nothing burger. But with some of the skills, some of the physical traits that we've got, some of the stats that popped, I look forward to seeing what he does at the combine. I think Dave, you mentioned like the 10-yard split and stuff. I think he's gonna hit that one well, because I think it shows up on film when he's got a hole. The acceleration is there. So I'm looking out for Robert Henry Jr., man. I think he's gonna be a sleeper, and I think we'll gain some steam here as the offseason goes, and I'm gonna be grabbing my shares.
Just getting an invite to the combine alone is like a huge feat for a guy coming out of UTSA. Like that's exciting stuff right there. It shows that he's on the NFL radar as well. Actually, earlier I talked about his like long runs, and I misspoke. I said the first 3 games, he actually had runs of 74 plus yards in the first 4 games of this season. Like just unbelievable stuff. And there's another guy that like didn't get the recruiting buzz, which is wild. He had 7,000 yards and 99 touchdowns in high school. And they got no recruiting buzz whatsoever. Went to JUCO, led the nation in JUCO rushing, and then ended up doing what he did at UTSA. So yeah, this is another guy that like has, the trial by fire through his collegiate career. Now he's ready for the next step, which is the NFL.
Maybe if he had a cooler name, I think he might have got more steam.
Telemachus P touchdown, and this dude is a first rounder.
Just imagine Tank Bigsby in Robert Henry's body.
Exactly.
Do you want me
to get a cooler name?
Do you want me to read the thing that I sent you from my buddy who coached him at UTSA?
Yes,
absolutely. Please do.
All right.
Yeah, we need to hear that.
I wasn't sure I wasn't sure if you wanted that shared, but absolutely, it was awesome.
Yeah, so super talented from a tiny school, like everything Dave said, from a tiny school in Mississippi, JUCO Heisman winner, just has done everything in his career off of raw athleticism. This is the most disciplined schematically and most productive year. He has great hands, elite catcher of the ball from the backfield, tough runner, solid contact balance, great quickness, and home run ability. Probably was top 5 in the country with 50-plus yard runs. So that was from my buddy who's on the staff at UTSA. Well, he's at Kentucky now, but he coached Robert Henry at UTSA this past year.
I love it. And you talk about this being like his best year yet, and that was so true, because if you watch some of his stuff from previous years, he was very indecisive. He would take a lot of big losses in the backfield, and this year he was just like, no, I'm getting downfield as quickly as I can, and that definitely showed up more this year than it did any other season.
He had a run. It was the other touchdown he scored in that A&M game. It was in the red zone. As soon as he touched the ball, like when you saw the end zone shot of this play, as soon as he touched the ball, it's dead to rights. His first plant in the ground after grabbing the ball is already bouncing outside. Like the instincts, it's decisiveness, it's instincts. Big fan.
Yeah. I love when you text me. I was like, Go ahead, Mike.
Well, I picked him up championship week in my Devi league. So it was championship week, and he was about to play Texas A&M. How do you think that turned out for me? 3 touchdowns, 176 yards. He did pretty freaking good. It was awesome. So, yeah, I was high on him earlier in the process coming from that school. So we'll see where he lands. And like Dave mentioned, getting that invite from the combine is a huge, huge feather in the cap. So hopefully he gets some looks here this week and shows what he can do, because Robert Henry isn't an exciting name. So hopefully he makes himself exciting. Now, Chev, it's your turn. Please talk about your boy.
So with Mike Washington Jr., I mean, there's not a lot left to be said. So, I mean,
he's old.
It's everything that you want. And if you just use math, you can figure out that he's not 25 years old. but apparently that's a huge knock on him and also he didn't dominate his first 2 years. But at Buffalo, he does have the record for longest touchdown in program history at 92 yards, and he had 625 yards after his redshirt freshman year. So I really, everything about him just screams undervalued. Going back to the 2-star profile, do you think that if COVID isn't a thing going into his senior year, that he gets to go on the camp circuit and boost his profile from being a 2-star recruit to maybe a 3-star or a 4-star recruit and end up somewhere better than Buffalo? I think so, based on the way that things played out. He goes to New Mexico State. He plays and splits the backfield with Seth McGowan, leads them in rushing touchdowns. It's all like just everything points to the fact that he's really good at football. And I feel like people are trying to convince themselves that he's not good at football because it doesn't fit their analytical models or whatever, spreadsheets and stuff. So I've been banging the drum for a while. I was hoping not to have to talk about it at all because people would just be like, oh, it's an Arkansas running back and he's super old. I was letting all that stuff fly. I was like, hey, yeah, let him be old. He sucks. You shouldn't be interested in him. 230-pound running backs that can run over safeties and like keep running, just grow on trees. We should ignore this. Make Jadarian Price your RB2. So with that being like all that being said, I love Mike Washington. So you love Mike Washington. I cried, we crowed. I would love to just hear what your thoughts are here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton to add to what you already said. You talk about his backfield mate at New Mexico State. Now we're talking about an old man. I think Seth McGowan's going to be 26 years old. So, Mike Washington doesn't have that issue. But, yeah, I mean, big fan of his game. I don't know if you saw my comp for him. I'm big on stylistic comps, and I went with Matt Forte here because Matt Forte, you see him, and he looks like this, big, just muscular guy. You expect him to just be like a guy who's going to truck through defenders, and then just like shockingly good in the receiving game as well. Just really good contact balance. So I see those big wide shoulders, the big muscular arms. It reminds me a lot of Matt Forte out there. Like we talked about, this guy's just bricked up. So we're excited about it. Bricked up Mike Washington.
You did it, Schultzy.
Are we? We did it.
Dude,
we got him to say it.
Schultzy
Go ahead, Schultzy. Say it. You got him.
Say what?
All right. Love the Mike Washington take. It's awesome. I think he's steaming quite up.
You gotta let Schultzy say it out loud because he's a Jacksonville fan.
You do it.
Good, Taylor.
Yes.
Oh, all right.
I thought he was going to say Duval.
No, you were describing Matt Forte, and like Matt Forte had a lot of those similar vibes that I saw out of Taylor. And you said it, dude, the big shoulders. That's like when you see Fred Taylor on the field, that's like the thing that stuck out is those shoulders. And as for his size, you don't anticipate the speed and the shiftiness and the cuts. And I trail that back to Matt Forte, dude. And then I saw the same thing, Fred Taylor a little bit. Yeah, I'm in.
And we're talking like actual like big shoulders, not like the Earl Campbell big shoulder pads. Like these.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Frank Gore had huge shoulders back then too.
No, we're talking built off power cleans and shrugs, baby.
Yes, sir.
Not Rydell pads.
Now you're talking
All right.
era.
All right. Your era, exactly. All right. Let's get into my guy, and I'm excited to hear what Dave has to say about him because you haven't steamed him up much. I haven't heard you talk too much about him, and there's a reason why I'm flag planting Emmett Johnson from Nebraska as my top rookie outside of obviously Jeremiah Love sitting alone because I see this class as very, a blend of a lot of split backfield guys, and when I look at that, I see Emmett Johnson being a guy that could really thrive in that environment. I know he's only 5'11", 200 pounds. He may not be built for those 20 plus carries a game, but his vision, his patience, and we got to remember his receiving chops make him a nightmare in space. Soft hands, great route running, the ability to turn checkdowns into chunk plays. He led Nebraska with massive production in 2025, 1,400 rushing yards. Awesome. Highest since 2014, 46 receptions and 370 yards in the air. He's got some great advanced metrics too, 68, missed tackles forced on rushes alone. He shows elite, elusiveness. I'm liking what I see there. 2.95 yards after contact per attempt, 36 explosive runs of 10 plus yards. I think he does well there. And, in a class here that doesn't have guys that are coming in that are going to be your full workhorse backs outside of Jeremiah Love, I think that, Emmett Johnson is going to be a PPR monster, and in the right landing spot, I see him doing really well. And if he tests okay this week, I think he's going to have some eyes on him. So this guy is a guy that I'm thinking can, come out of the gate and be very productive for a team. And I just love all those aspects of his game. And in a class that's got some cloudiness around it, I think that Emmett Johnson is going to be the guy that's going to steam up right away because of where he lies, and he's a good rusher as well. The size isn't there, but I've already baked that into his cost at this stage.
Yeah, I think for me with Emmett Johnson, I've been strategically quiet about him because it's so hard for me to formulate a take without the combine, because I think this guy has so many questions to answer about his athleticism. We see it a lot that these guys that are able to generate breakaway plays in college don't always transfer to breakaway plays in the pros. And I think that's my major concern here. I want to see if he's still got that long speed. Again, I don't think the 40 is that important, but I do worry that he's a little bit slower than his numbers and production would lead you to believe. That being said, I mean, I think he can be a good secondary weapon, but the size limitations also concern me a bit. So if that's the role that you're going to be in, is kind of this in a split backfield, those are the guys that I really want to see have the breakaway speed. Of course, he can get there as a route runner and a good receiver, and I like that about him. This was actually one of the comps that I was most proud of in the rookie guide was Ahmad Bradshaw, another guy who was undersized, not a super athlete, but was just decisive, good vision, could catch the ball. That's what I see with Emmett Johnson, but even Ahmad Bradshaw never really ran away with a backfield. He was always splitting it with somebody.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that this is going to be a lot of split backfields anyhow. Yeah. So I see with the receiving drops, I think he might be the best receiving back out of this, top end class here. Maybe Nick Singleton can come in there, but I think that Emmett Johnson has got all those chops to be that guy. So I'm going to, especially in PPR leagues, that's the guy that I'm just going to put those investments into, especially with how vague it is. So that's my take on it. I mean, Chev, what's your take on Emmett Johnson? Because you were steaming him up as well. I think he's your RB2 as well, and I know bigz has got him up there as well.
Yeah, we have a handful of running backs that we can point to that have his size profile that have been successful. James Cook, Devon Etienne, Kyron Williams is 205, Christian McCaffrey's 207. We've got a handful of guys, and the league has shifted now. Backers aren't 260. Like they used to be. It'd be a problem if he had to meet Ray Lewis between the tackles. But, there's Edgerrin Cooper's 230 pounds. Diane Henley's 226. These guys are guys that would have been safeties in the early 2000s. But I believe that this is the guy who, outside of Jeremiah Love, who could translate the best because he's got the 3-down skill set. He's got pass catching. I loved my Ahmad Bradshaw comp would be Kalen Black. I'm in love with Kalen Black also, which we won't talk about on the set. We almost talked about, but I switched because I wanted to talk about Mike Washington because I know we all love Mike Washington.
So unfair. I tweeted about that as soon as the combine list came out. Kalen Black should not get subbed.
Yeah, but with Emmett Johnson, I think that there's going to be a path that nobody's really going to be looking for, kind of like Alvin Kamara back in 2017 when he was on the Saints and they had Mark Ingram and Adrian Peterson. He was just kind of stuck for a week or two, and then they're like, wait, no, this dude's way better than everybody else we got, so we gotta do it. And I think that happens in Minnesota. He's from Minnesota, won Mr. Football in the state of Minnesota. I think if he lands in Minnesota, probably 3rd-round draft capital, people are gonna poo-poo on it because they've got the second highest running back spend in the entire NFL. But those guys, I mean, honestly, my comp for him is Aaron Jones. That's who he reminds me of. That's what I'm hoping for. I know it's just hopium at this point, but I love Emmett Johnson. I guess I don't see what everybody else sees in terms of limitations, which is I'm grading to the flashes very clearly because he sucks at pass protection, but I think it's going to work. And I think it's going to work in a very, very aggressive way.
My Aaron Jones comp was another snub, Jaden Ott. I thought Jaden Ott just reminded me so much of Aaron Jones and was upset to see that snub.
He's my favorite favorite running back of the class. And I've just watched it as over the last 2 seasons and pre-draft season, he's gone from like elite, like top 2 talent to not even getting a combine invite. It's just been crazy.
I feel like he made some people.
All right, Coach.
Oklahoma.
Yeah, he might have. Yeah. There has to be something. There's something that's underlining him. He's not a good teammate. He's not a good player for the coaching staff. There's something there because there's no way you just let a guy like that just not play. Coach, what do you got?
Hey, love it. And on Emmett Johnson, look, GLP-1s are all the rage, but I'm just going to encourage people to be obese on Emmett Johnson. Get your exposure up on him. He can make a mistake and make up for it with the speed on tape, but he looks off defenders through the blocks. And the linebacker, the defensive back, if they misjudge and they make the wrong choice, Emmett Johnson is gone. So that's something that I see there. And then, of course, the receiving ability. Yeah, RB2 for me, and he's in that vein archetype. Tier down way low. Don't hear what I'm not saying. Of the Achans and Gibbs skill sets that we want, the Travion Hendersons. So maybe Emmett Johnson could be on par with maybe a Travion Henderson in that archetype skill set, but somebody whose price could raise up in price at the NFL Combine, which I am predicting is Jadarian Price. We can get him to push to RB2 or maybe RB3, depending on how great Mike Washington ends up for us. Just some notes that I have, Dave, on Jadarian Price. For NC State, all 22. Good shifting laterally, can run east-west when north is taken away. Gets through his first gap, vacuums up the lateral yards all the way to the sideline. Squeezed all the field that he could. Cut back and didn't outrun his block. The blocking stretched to the sideline, and he cut back sharply north. Other ones, dangerous on zone runs. Outside zone runner. Can follow directions of the blockers. Key, and hey, maybe it's a Shanahan offense. Quick decision-making, recognizing gaps and holes to run through. But also, no fear of the A-gap, even through the outside zone when that's available as well. Weaknesses, though, and I want your take on this because these are the questions. The pass pro gives away sometimes on his block. Doesn't consume the defender entirely. Jadarian Price looks overwhelmed at times on blitz pickup. There's the workload questions with Jeremiah Love. And then the biggest one out there to me is the limited accounting stats for receptions. We had somebody like Kenneth Walker have those accusations, but I don't see Price aligned with Kenneth Walker prospect-wise. And, of course, as you rattled off the free agents versus this class, you got Walker clearly ahead, Dave. But tell me, what do you think about Jadarian Price? Is there a path where he can vault up, as Daniel Jeremiah was hyping maybe round 1 draft capital, Jadarian Price to the RB2 in this class? What is the path, and where do you have Jadarian Price?
I've got him as my RB4 right now, but we're really splitting hairs. Like he's so close to being my RB2 that saying RB4 sounds disrespectful, but like he is a very good player. I've got him kind of I split. Everybody talks about that like RB2 to RB7 tier, and I think that it is very tight. But Jadarian Price, Kaytron Allen, Mike Washington, those are the guys that I kind of have atop that tier, and then the other guys are behind, but they're all so close here. You talk about the lack of pass catching. I mean, Jeremiah Love didn't catch a ton of passes either. Malachi Field, like it's just a product of the Notre Dame offense. Like they don't throw the ball a lot, so their receivers aren't going to have a lot of receptions here. The pass pro is definitely an issue, and he's a little bit undersized as well. But he's one of those undersized guys that plays with contact balance, like an Alvin Kamara or a Jamal Charles type. Like, even though he's a little bit smaller, he's still so good at staying upright. And you see that more on special teams than anything else, where he'll get knocked when he's running full speed, and he'll just keep moving downfield without even slowing down. So I like him a lot. Draft capital would be the big thing that would move him up. I've heard the buzz about round 1 draft capital. My player comp for him that I settled on was CJ Spiller, who was a former first-round pick, and people get really upset about that, but I'm still convinced, like, had CJ Spiller stayed healthy, he'd have been much, much better. So I think Price can easily end up being the RB2 in this class, and I don't think he's going to get drafted in the first round, but I think he's going to fall into that day 2 cluster with a lot of these other running backs.
For me, he's going to be a guy that could fall in an opportunity that will really come to fruition here, because you look at, him playing behind an elite guy that you have as your RB4 in Dynasty right now, Dave, and Jeremiah Love. Like, he's playing behind that guy that is a top elite talent. So we don't even know what this guy can bring to the table. He's probably going to be in a way better situation than he was ever been in, regardless of who he's playing behind. Really, at this stage, there's very few teams that are in the market putting him behind a guy like that. So I love that call, and a guy that Jadarian Price might be a sleeper here that could steam up and really make us scratching our heads in the middle of this season saying, hey, why weren't we on him earlier?
I actually like the initial comp that I came up with, and Jeff Bell, my colleague, we bounce a lot of takes off each other. He forced me to use a different comp because he said mine was too disrespectful. But I think Leon Washington was just a guy who was way ahead of his time. And that's who I see with Jadarian Price. I mean, just the way that he runs, like the huge plays on special teams. And I think, Leon Washington 10, 15 years ago when he came into the league, he did have to meet a guy like Ray Lewis in between the tackles, like you were talking about, Chev. But the game is different nowadays, where I think that he's probably, the skill set, the speed, the big playability, what he brings on special teams. I think he'd be a little bit more valued than today. But that, for anybody who isn't familiar with Leon Washington, if you go watch some of his highlights, that's a lot of what I see with Jadarian Price.
Ooh, that's aggressive.
Yeah, people didn't like that one.
No, I mean, I know what Leon. I'm a Florida fan, so I know what Leon.
All right,
Washington
all right. So it's not disrespectful to you then.
I completely understand. It just didn't. Like, sometimes we get confused with what a guy actually was in college and then how his career played out. But there's so many different things that go into that I don't think people realize, that you still can't take away the fact that, like, Leon Washington at Florida State was like a human highlight reel.
Right.
It's just, it didn't work out in the NFL, but that's not all on him per se.
He was too small. If he was drafted in 2025, he would have been a stud, but he was just, that type of archetype back in the day just didn't translate. And, I think that was the biggest issue with Leon Washington in the pros.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, bigz, bring us home with your guy, your flag plant guy that you want to talk about.
Well, I have a couple flag plants. First is going to be, a lot of people disrespect this running back class, and we've just gotten done talking about a lot of guys who rank basically 1 through 5 with Jeremiah Love as the number 1. And when we look at last year's class, it was basically 5 guys. So you had Ashton Genty, you had Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson. There were a bunch of Omarion Hampton. There was a grouping there where it was one clear leader and then 3 or 4 that were all kind of interchangeable. And I see a lot of similarities in this class. The talent might not be there, but the way that the class breaks down is exactly the same. And I'm going to talk about a guy that I'm flag planting as my RB2 of this class, and that's Jonah Coleman. So we want to talk about size. You got a kid who's basically thick Ashton Genty. He's 220 pounds, maybe plus, same height as Genty, and that's to Genty's 210 pounds. He goes in Arizona, has a sophomore breakout with over 1,000 yards from scrimmage, competent in the passing game, 25 catches for 283 yards in the receiving game, and 20 is the number of catches that we look for. He exceeded that all 3 seasons. That was in a Pac-12 offensive environment. He enters the transfer portal, goes to the Big Ten to play for Washington in more of a defensive environment, continues his streak of 3 straight years with 1,000 yards from scrimmage and over 175 yards receiving and over 20 catches per season. He has 1,053 yards in 2024 for Washington. The guy can do everything on the field. And when you start digging into kind of where he ranks, you look at his missed tackles forced per attempt. He is at an elite level. He's just ahead of Jeremiah Love. Why can't I say the name? He's just ahead of Jeremiah Love in missed tackles forced per attempt. He's ahead of other guys who have found success in the NFL, like Breece Hall, Zach Charbonnet, Quinshon Judkins, the aforementioned. He's far ahead of Jadarian Price. And then when you start talking about his explosive, his 10-yard plus rush rate, he's ahead of a bunch of other guys like that, including Jonathan Brooks, Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs, more 10-plus yard plays in college than Jahmyr Gibbs had, more than Omarion Hampton. Jonah Coleman does everything on the field. He's fun to watch, and he's got the size that means that he's going to be durable. If somebody takes a chance on him as a singular back, not in a mixed backfield, he can do everything, similar to what Genty did with the Raiders last year. If he does find himself in a situation where the Seahawks move on from Kenneth Walker, bring in Coleman and Charbonnet go ahead with the offense next year, Jonah Coleman is going to show out. I love this kid. He's a local kid from Stockton here in Northern California, and he is my RB2 of this class.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Jonah Coleman as well. And again, he just falls into that cluster with all of these other guys that we're talking about. Like, we're going to have much more information after Saturday when we see how he tests at the combine, because we know he's a bowling ball. He can just level defenders, but he does have some nice little wiggle to his game. Like, he's a little bit bouncier than I think you'd expect. You look at him and you think he's just going to play like Audric Estime, when really he's, a little bit more nimble than that. So this is a guy that I think if he tests well this weekend, which I expect him to, he'll be another riser, and that's really what it's going to come down to. And we're comparing Emmett Johnson and Jonah Coleman and Kaytron Allen. I mean, these guys are so just close in rankings right now that once we see, who is doing well in the shuttles and who's doing well in the 3 cones and who looks better when we see all of these guys running the same drill one after another, that's when we can differentiate a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Man, Dave, hour in, you were cooking today on the running backs. We gained so much knowledge. Once again, our viewers have as well. Really appreciate you coming on the show. And, 3rd year in a row, 3 years of charm. We're going to have you back next year, hopefully, if you'll graciously accept our invite.
Absolutely. Yeah. Count me in already. I'll get it on my calendar.
It's like his Riz just increases every year.
There it is. Yeah, I love it. You woke Chev up. That was cool. All right, Dave. Once you regain your composure here, tell everybody what you got going on, what you got cooking over at Football Guys.
Yeah, Football Guys Rookie Guide, of course, which I plugged at the top of the show, footballguys.com/rookie guide. Got the Football Guys Dynasty show, got the Football Guys Fantasy Football show, the Launchpad, articles, you name it, we're doing it over at footballguys.com.
Love it. You are, you're someone that we've looked up to, and we're just really incredibly humbled to have you on our show and continue to grow our viewership, and appreciate you having the time to take for us today. And Bigz, take us home like you always do. Plug us away, bud.
Well, I'm not going to tell you not to subscribe to Football Guys and get their rookie guide and all that stuff, but we got some stuff cooking over here on Fantasy Sports Advice Network. Just think of how much better a player you'll be in Dynasty if you're using both. All of the combined knowledge of your Dave Kluge and Bob Harris and all the guys over at Football Guys, plus this panel of 5, everything we got going at FSAN. We've got a rookie guide coming out, so look for that too. Everything can be found at fantasysportsadvice.com. Like, subscribe, hit the bell on this video. Go ahead and chat with us in the comments. If you've come over from the Fantasy Forecast and you've never played Dynasty before and you heard us call to action and say, hey, come talk to us and we'll put a league together for you, hit us in the comments. Tell us that you've never played Dynasty before, and we will put a league together that you can play. No pressure, just come and learn Dynasty, because it's the best way to play fantasy football. Drop those in the chat, and we hope you win.
Hope you win. Thanks a lot, Dave. Appreciate you coming on, buddy. Later. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy Sports Advice Network NFL Rookie Prospect Guide, built by fantasy managers for fantasy managers who want an edge before draft day even arrives. The Debbie Dojo and the Fantasy Forecast squads have been grinding film and data, breaking down over 70 offensive prospects with fantasy football in mind. Every profile includes college production, athletic testing, advanced metrics, and role-based evaluations that translate directly to your dynasty, redraft, best ball, and superflex leagues. The first release drops Monday, March the 9th, with a fully updated post-NFL. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Fantasy Sports Advice Network NFL Rookie Prospect Guide, built